As a martial artist, you want to be able to move your body as one. It's not separate items, upper or lower. It's just been a great awareness of this like oneness. Bringing the head, the hands and the feet, bring this whole connection into the spatial awareness of your whole body. And that's what I mean about using more tissue or using my body better. When I was doing my jiu-jitsu, it's like, wow, I can actually now utilize or understand how to position my foot. That then drives up the kinetic chain to now have more hip power, giving me more structural balance as I now have a better triangle base or awareness to where that foot or even the outside edge or the pinky toe and the big toe need to be. Yeah, it was life-changing, eh? There's been a few life-changing moments in my life, and that would be up there.
In this episode, I sit down with Ben Watson, who is a Gold Coast-based personal trainer, mixed martial artist, certified TFC guide, and a WEC Method master coach. And I originally connected with Ben through our strong shared passion for play-based movement training, as well as my own deep interest in WEC Method and rotational movement training. And we've since actually become very good friends, and Ben is now also involved behind the scenes in some TFC training development, as well as our TFC hub programming, which is really exciting. And throughout this conversation, we explore Ben's story with martial arts and how that has shaped his training approach for himself and his clients. We discuss the power of simple tools as teachers when it comes to skill development, and the importance of play and actually having fun with your movement training in order to maximize both effectiveness and sustainability of the training. So this episode is a great introduction to the concepts of WEC Method, and it's worth noting that our episode next week will be with David WEC himself, which was recorded when we had the opportunity to visit the WEC lab in San Diego last year. So that will be a really great follow-up to this conversation if you're interested to learn more learn even more about WEC Method straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And I will also say that even after hearing about WEC Method on these podcast episodes, you will still likely need to have an actual physical experience of it to understand it. And if you're based in Australia, then I highly recommend connecting with Ben, or depending on where else you're based, there should be a WEC Method coach available to help you with that. This obviously takes some more effort, but in my opinion, it's extremely worthwhile. Even if you just learn some basic rope flow, it has very quickly become one of my favorite styles of training, and you can expect to see a lot more of it from me on my Instagram page at Barefoot Fun Guide. And we've also been starting to incorporate these principles and concepts, especially the rope flow, into our classes here at the Hub, with really great feedback from everyone who tries it. It all does look a little bit strange at first, but it is something that you really just have to try and have a good crack at. Anyway, I really enjoyed this conversation with Ben. I hope you get some value out of it as well. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
And before we go, we did want to let you in on one last little secret too. Do you want to know one of the most powerful things that you can do for your foot health today? It's changing your shoes. We are probably preaching to the converted. A lot of our listeners are probably well aware of the benefits of natural footwear, but we want to reiterate that most modern shoes are too narrow, too stiff, and too cushioned, which means they don't let your feet move the way they're designed to. That's why we're super proud to be partnering with Vivo Barefoot, one of the leaders in natural footwear globally. Vivo Barefoot makes footwear that's foot-shaped, flat, flexible, and thin enough for your feet to feel the ground beneath them. And here at TFC, we believe that's exactly what your feet need to function naturally. We've personally been wearing them for years, and we've seen firsthand how powerful this transition can be for improving our own foot strength, posture, and performance. And we're really keen for you guys to try them out too. So depending on where you're starting from, of course, this transition does need to be slow and steady. We are here to support you with the training and education that you need through that journey. But if you are ready to make the switch to shoes that support the health of your feet, instead of disrupting them, then you can head to the link in the description of this episode to explore Vivo's awesome range. And to celebrate the launch of the new Primus Flow, Vivo's first barefoot running shoes, we have a special offer this week just for our audience. If you use the code TheFootCollective25, you can save 25% on selected styles until May 15, 2025. Don't think Vivos are for you? Well, you can check out our footwear finder where there's a heap of other trusted natural footwear brands from around the world, with special discounts too. So all of those links are in the show notes.
Benny,
So cheap.
thanks for coming in, bro. It's good to have you on the podcast. We have only been in touch for probably a matter of months.
Yeah.
We connected on Instagram, as is the case for so many people these days, especially in our line of work. And we had a chat on the phone. I came to your certification. You came to my certification.
Yes.
I came to another of your certifications. And obviously we've been having a lot of chats along the way. So I'm super stoked to have you on and to share your story, your wisdom with our audience. So when we first connected, you told me about your story with TFC, so I thought it'd be good to just start there and we can just flow.
Yeah, perfect. Welcome to the flowing. So I guess my story started in probably 2019 after I realized that you could actually train your feet. And I was like,
that's a big realization.
Whoa, this is a thing. There's so much ability here. And from that, just probably speaking it out loud, I ended up finding one of the TFC courses.
Yeah, they're listening.
Yeah, they love it. And I was like, this would be perfect. And so the reason I was needing to train my feet was because my ankle had been dislocated with an ankle lock. And I just flicked it back in and then never did any rehab for it. And then with that, there was always like a stickiness or like a clickiness with it. And the arch was never actually rebuilt either. So it started getting that flat foot on my left and it was like pronating in way more. And I could notice on my right, now that arch, I think it's called malocclusion, where the arch stays up. And yeah, that word malocclusion was a thing that I wanted to like try and achieve on my left. And from the TFC idea of balance beaming, adding in like some foot training and getting under foam rolling the bottom of your feet, which made sense because I was foam rolling other areas of my body. Why am I not doing this sensitive area underneath? There was so much pain when I started.
True, especially on the left.
Yeah, and then it was amazing. I could actually notice my feet getting sweaty. And like that's because they were starting to work. And from there, it just gave me so much access to more tissue in my martial arts and my jiu-jitsu. The ability that I was now gripping the ground, driving through the floor. And it didn't fix it immediately. Like it's been a long journey. Probably only in the last 2 years has like that arch now started to sit up in a strong sort of structured position. And yeah, it's just been a great awareness of this like oneness of, as a martial artist, you want to be able to move your body as one. It's not separate items, upper or lower. And bringing the head, the hands and the feet, bring this whole connection into the spatial awareness of your whole body. And that's what I mean about using more tissue or using my body better. When I was doing my jiu-jitsu, I was like, wow, I can actually now utilize or understand how to position my foot that then drives up the kinetic chain to now have more hip power, giving me more structural balance as I now have a better triangle base or awareness to where that foot or even the outside edge or the pinky toe and the big toe need to be. And yeah, it was life-changing, eh? There's been a few life-changing moments in my life, and that would be up there. Like when I was like, oh my gosh, like you can actually train your feet? Like what the heck?
It's actually interesting because, like you say, martial artists use their feet. Mostly martial arts is trained barefoot. It should almost go without saying that you should be training your feet, but it's not necessarily common knowledge in those circles.
It's almost like not frowned upon, but it's just not like looked at as something that you would do.
Bit glazed over.
Yeah, it's more like just go and do the action, hit the bag, and the feet will follow.
Yeah.
Or you'll figure it out as you go. And like that's been a lot of my martial arts journey, like learning. Like I remember one of the biggest like wake up calls when I was training at 20 years old in Thailand, and they were like, you're going to run this like 10K loop. Here's 2.5 kilos each hand, or like maybe more, 4 kilos each hand. Wanting to drop those weights, hey, so bad. And you see the other fellas like running past you and all that, like they're figuring out how to do it. So you end up just persevering and getting over the finish line, but you've not got that right understanding of the biomechanics or what you're actually doing. You're just a hard worker.
Just pushing
through. And this leads to so many problems in martial arts because you end up getting burnt out, or like you're overworking and not resting, or you're putting in bad motor patterns into your system.
You get injured.
And that was a lot of my tenure in martial arts was showing up fatigued to like important sessions and then not getting the most valuable sparring rounds in because you're actually exhausted from already training in the morning and doing 10 rounds in the morning, and you just ended up putting in bad information into the body instead of looking at it like a movement snack where, or a condensed session like an Olympic athlete would look at. I'm showing up to perform. And this is now the shift that has started to happen in my training, is that we're actually needing to show up to perform, show up with the same vigor and attitude that you would when you're actually going to perform. So you're replicating what you're needing to do for that time. I'm not in the ring for an hour and a half. I'm only in the ring for 30 minutes sometimes, you know what I mean?
So you're saying have the training, the sort of strength and conditioning be supportive of your skill training development sessions, as similar to how you'd have it support an actual performance, but not have the strength and conditioning fatigue you so much that you can't even perform in your skill training.
Perfect. Yeah. And so that would mean that if some sort of up and coming athletes, maybe it's like, don't do strength and conditioning on the same day that you're doing sparring. Some simple things like that. Rest in that morning so that you can perform in your sparring. And I just never had that attitude as a young man. It was like, I've got to do more, got to do more, got to do more.
I think that's a good segue into this broad concept of load management. And so, if you're not tolerating or distributing loads well in your feet, then everything else has to work harder to compensate, which is something that sounded like you experienced. And then
Big time.
When you started to train your feet, you were able to integrate everything much better, distribute those loads much better. You became a more efficient athlete. And Similarly, on like a broader perspective, then if you just do too much for your body to handle and integrate, then you're not going to get as much benefit. There is, especially in fitness culture, I think, and modern culture is like more is better, is just the sort of, or like hustle culture, I suppose. Could go for fitness and movement, could go for work, like career-wise, etc. It's very much a more is better concept, but certainly what we find when people start training their feet is more isn't necessarily better, especially at first. You really want to be gradually adding things in and listening to your body along the way. So I guess that's another overarching principle here, is actually tuning into the signals your body's giving you and listening to them and adapting to them. Right?
Yeah, and it's hard to do that unless you have actually gone through it. Like as a young man, I probably wouldn't have even been able to like have that intuition or understanding. But as I've gotten older and delved deeper into breath training, how to access the parasympathetic state and the heightened sympathetic state, and you now start to what is this duality in the center here, and striving for that. Now it's like, okay, I understand both sides. Why don't I try and find something harmonious in the center there?
Yeah.
And you're really going to have to live it, like push yourself, because otherwise you're not going to be able to actually like get better in some areas. Like there is a time to make that sacrifice as well. Like if you're awake at like 9 p.m. at night as an athlete, go and do some accessory work. Look, go and do the mental work sometimes in those moments as well. Like spend the time, instead of just scrolling and doing nothing that aimlessly like sets you up to win, you can be thinking of that aren't exhausting. Like you can be doing your mental work, your visualization. You can be writing in your journal what you want to achieve tomorrow. You can be setting up your meal prep. There's so many little aspects that you can actually start getting small wins instead of more training.
Yeah, and there's a lot in that. Something that comes to mind is that the gym and strength and conditioning and all that stuff, I guess, originally was used as accessory for the performance of the skill of the training or the performance of a skill, right? And then maybe it was with bodybuilding culture that came through where it's like the gym became
the Arnold Schwarzenegger area.
The gym almost became the performance. And so people are getting in there and they're literally training to failure in the gym because the goal was muscle growth, right? Yeah. Whereas if you take that culture and apply it to skill learning or skill development or athletic development, it doesn't necessarily carry over, does it? Because you're then not leaving enough in the tank to train your sport.
Yeah. Train your sport. Go catch the food that you have to catch. Like be provider, all of those things, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. As in catch the food / make the money that you need to, it's a lot of time investment. Whereas, and this is something since working with you more and with WEC method, which we're going to delve into. I'm getting into the gym and I'm doing like a really solid warm up in terms of like actual blood flow, walking, rowing, ski erg, just actual sort of zone 2 cardio kind of stuff, getting thoroughly warmed up. And then I'm doing like a few sets of some key things. And then I'm going and practicing skills that I like to practice, and so the gym doesn't wipe me out so that I'm fatigued for the rest of the day. I'm actually more energized for the rest of the day. Yeah. And that's kind of like again, it's a balance. You have to listen to your body and figure out what works for you. But it's a bit of a paradigm shift because I think people are in this mindset of I have to get a workout. They want to feel like they're on the ground, they're sweated. And yes, there probably is a role for that in certain contexts. But I think people underestimate the power of just a solid movement session that isn't necessarily focused on working out, but it's focused on the technique of a movement, the efficiency of a movement. And I think this comes back to WEC method, the intent of a movement can make a huge difference to the stimulus of that session, regardless of how long you're actually doing it for.
Yeah. And we see this in the forms of play because you watch the skill development play, safety to explore. Time just washes away. It's no longer, I have to do this for 45 minutes on a treadmill. You put a timer on a treadmill, you want the timer to finish. You put a timer on when you're playing with the rope or juggling or hacky. You're not thinking about the timer ever.
Yeah.
You're completely absorbed and present on the action and the skill requirement for that.
I actually have to set interval timers to remind me to change. Yeah. Because you get so deep on whatever it is you're doing.
That's the paradigm shift here.
Yeah.
It's where are we finding these moments? Oh, we know it. We can feel it. So I want to do more of that. And coming from martial arts, it was so rigid, so boring. No. But you just went and did the same jab cross, jab cross, jab cross. How do I get better? Just go hit the bag harder. It didn't bring that same joy as rolling ropes, which was completely explorative, or doing WEC method where you're feeling this new sensation through your body and able to analyze and structurally balance yourself in a strategic position that you can actually feel efficient. And I'm too highly dominating my trap here. How do I switch that? Your body knows. And this opened up a whole nother door for me, the action of play. And it's made me a better fighter, but also a better person. And that is ultimately the whole goal of martial arts as well, is that you want to become a better person and you're seeking for the next day to get better. I call it church sometimes, because if you don't go to bed early enough or eat the right food the night before, your training partners, they'll read you the Bible verse and put you to sleep. You find out real quick what works and what doesn't work. And I'm fortunate enough coming from a background where I ate very cleanly thanks to my mother and father, that I figured out that KFC wasn't great. But I'm not saying it was perfect, but I haven't eaten KFC since 2020. But anyway, it's a while. That's a long time. Yeah. But anyway, what I'm getting at is that having bad dietary decisions didn't give me the result I needed at church. Didn't make me perform. So I was dialed in that way.
And in a martial arts context, when you don't perform, you really feel it.
Yeah, it hurts, dude. It hurts.
Like it hurts physically and probably from like an ego point of view as well. Like,
yeah, dude. Yeah, because guess who's coming to save you? No one. When you're eating that next meal and you're like only just replaying over everything that was happening, and you're like, oh wow, that was my doing. Only me could have stopped that and prevented it. It's a beautiful way for you to start leveling up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
It's also a very primal way. I think like we live in such relative luxury that we don't really have to defend ourselves or our families from physical violence on a regular basis.
Correct.
It's not guaranteed. You might have to. And this is where I think it's a bit of a fallacy where people just don't think they have to be prepared for that. And then if they get in a situation, they kind of wish they were more prepared. But I'm keen to dig into martial arts a bit more because obviously it's a big part of who you are, what you do, why you do it, including WEC methods. So
correct.
Yeah, let just from the get-go, like where did your journey with martial arts start?
Perfect. Love it. So basically, as soon as I finished school, I was like, hang on, I'm going to either go and do more schooling at university or I can somehow manipulate this and choose to go somewhere else. And then that's where I could have gone into the military, or I figured out, I was like, oh, jiu-jitsu. I'd been doing like sort of just a little bit of jiu-jitsu in the holidays and was noticing how beneficial that was to my rugby and to even my, not ego, but like my ability to navigate bullies and all of that in school as well, and like give myself a little bit more confidence. So I was like, far out, like I'm going to go do more of this. So I'll take a gap here and just fully commit into jiu-jitsu and just work some shitty swim teacher and janitor jobs and all this just to do something I love and basically
pay your jiu-jitsu bills.
Literally, bro, literally. And like looking back on it now, it was like the best decision I ever did because it continued my childlike ability to play. So I didn't stop playing or have to go into the workforce to like be a military man, which would have drilled out the creativity, the exploration, and the ability to be a free thinker. This ability to create, I believe I'm grateful to my parents. This like formatting like out this like you can trust yourself, go. And that has led me to amazing feats in my martial arts. And like landing flying knees and stuff like, oh, I can do that here, boom, boom. And now you get a cool knockout. But the joy that I had of saying no to the military and further schooling was I went all in and I was doing 5-6 days a week at jiu-jitsu. I got good quickly. I got a blue belt in like 12 months.
Wow.
So very quickly and started winning like, I don't think I won national titles until I was in blue belt, but it literally was just working to support my jiu-jitsu journey. Ended up, I wasn't really pursuing MMA. This is the funny part of the story. So I wasn't pursuing MMA at the time. I was like, I'm going to become a black belt in jiu-jitsu and coach jiu-jitsu because I can do that with swimming. I can do that with jiu-jitsu. Tell my white collar parents that sort of thing as well. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, there's nothing. But the game then became, I was watching people doing the striking and would have friends that were doing MMA and stuff. They're like, go to Thailand. I finally just took my savings. And I think it was like 7K. Took my savings with me to Thailand and ended up training for like 6 months over there.
Wow.
It was eye-opening, to say the least. 2 times a day, 6 days a week.
Is that Muay Thai only or MMA?
Only Muay Thai. Only Muay Thai. And this was probably the best thing I'd ever done because it was sort of my awakening away from like, you can either choose to hang out with the travelers, smoking, drinking, partying, or you go to bed now. And because you're in that environment of like low cost living and you're in hostels and stuff at the start, you end up like realizing like, wow, the decision I make right now will really impact what I do in my future or my session. That's at 20. I'm now starting to really understand, okay, what I eat the night before will affect me in church later on. And yeah, I really ended up having a lot of challenges during that 6 months, that time. Had 3 competitive fights, had a moment when I got front kicked and I bit my tongue open. Yeah, it was bad. And there was a lot of challenges in realizing no one's coming to save you, and these big awakening moments as oh, okay, maybe this is my transitional walkabout from teenager like attitude into becoming a man. And because you're doing so much in this dense time, not working, just focusing on my training, when I came back and everyone else had just been doing 1 time a week or, like a few sessions, I was roaring my timing, my sequencing, my positional awareness from getting beaten up by like 12 to 14-year-old Thai kids was, dude, it's so demoralizing, right? Like, there was moments when they were kicking my legs so much that my legs got so tired, I just stood like a tree and they chopped me and I fell and hit the deck on the ground. I was like, maybe I'm done today. And you like crawl yourself out of the ring. And so you come back and I gained another level. And from that, I then started to venture in and use my skills and attributes in Muay Thai. And that then led me to winning like a amateur Australian title in Muay Thai. And then 4 weeks later, ended up someone pulling out for a K1 amateur title as well. And I was like, oh, well, I'm still fit and fresh here. Let's have a go here. And then so we won 2 Australian title belts in 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's putting you at what, 22 years old? Something like that?
23, I think. Yeah, 23. And then so 2016 is when I turned pro in MMA after, at this stage I'm still blue belt. No, purple belt, I think. Yeah, purple belt. And I'd had 2 amateur amateur MMA fights. One of them I lost, the other one I won. And I was like, well, it's now or never. Let's just turn pro. Let's just go for it. And got into the pro ring, and I was fortunate enough to actually fight the fella that I lost to in my first amateur MMA fight for my first pro fight.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was very lucky because the psychological area of this fellow had already beating me. I was not going to let that happen. There was nothing he could do to me inside of that cage that would make me give up. It would never cross my mind that losing was an option. It was only I'm here to win. And that arrogance or that attitude, it's this duality of ego, is a beautiful understanding of okay, I'm showing up here to perform, and it does not matter what you throw at me. If you hit me, it doesn't hurt right now. And that realizing embodying that throughout my life, but also now the 10 pro fights that I have acquired in there, is one of the best mentalities to actually build this resilience that whatever is thrown at you, it's a Teflon pan. It's just going to slide off and you're just going to keep going. And the fun part about this story is that 10 days before that MMA fight, that pro MMA fight, I dislocated my left shoulder. I was shooting a takedown on a much bigger fella than me on a Sunday when I shouldn't have been training. And he sprawled hard, popped my shoulder out. And it was just one of those moments that everything went numb. Anyway, I was not going to let this fella like beat me. So I was in the pool, like trying to just move my arm 9 days before, like, come on. A minute and a half into the fight, I hit him with a knee, falls to the ground. And so I've like dropped him. I think I've won. The referee hasn't stepped in yet. So then I've got to come in with a finish, and I throw this like big haymaker with my left, and I pop the shoulder out again. And then so I'm like feeling that same numbness. I push it back in and like try not to, I'm now grappling on the ground with the guy, like trying not to let the pain like absorb my mind and my head. And it was quite overbearing, but funny part, if you watch that fight back, I actually don't throw any more left hands for the rest of the fight. I end up just like slapping and like pouring. He figured that out probably and ended up dropping me in the third round. I was like, fuck you, that doesn't hurt, like did. and figured out a way to actually win unanimously. And it was fucking intense, man. So that was my first pro fight. And got my revenge in a sense against the fella. He's a great man as well, though. Actually, good friendship.
Still mates.
Yeah, still mates. George Malizas, good fella. He's a tough bugger, actually. Long-winded story.
And so this is all pre-COVID, and from what we've talked about, you were kind of on a pathway to just keep fighting professionally and probably take it further and further.
Yeah.
And then
so I had some losses along the way, but I had a record of 8-2, and then I was going to fight for the AFC Bantamweight Championship back in April 2020. And I was on weight, primed, ready. 2.5 weeks out, COVID happens. And I was like, no, doesn't matter. I'll still be there, guys. I'll see you in Melbourne. This attitude of like, no, whatever, we're going to be there. We're going to go. And the world stopped. So this is a beautiful moment for me because my whole ego was shaped around who I was in the gym. And now the gyms have closed. My whole like persona and of what I do throughout my day is open. It's completely changed. Yes, my money, my clients, all of that disappeared as well.
So you're already training people in personal training, martial arts?
Quit my job midway through 2017 to like pursue, funny part of the story, that next fight I ended up losing. So I quit my job thinking that I'm going to make the UFC, and I actually lost that next fight. That was my first loss.
True.
And it was like, wow, massive hit to like, oh, where am I going to go in this? But I was training people in personal training and clients like that.
So you were training yourself, training others, gyms closed. What do you do?
And then I lent into it. I lent into this healing journey aspect, and basically I just went hard and said, I'm going to do a 3-day fast. I've never had the opportunity to fully commit to this. And in that fast, I had a very good friend, Lockie G, that joined me on that fast. And in that fast, there was so many lessons, so many learnings, unravelings, and like having to soften the body and actually fully rest. And I hadn't slowed down like that ever. And my nervous system just loved it. So from that, in that fast, I actually found the RMT rope, watching David Weck, like teaching some baseball fellas, like, oh, this is how we warm up our throwing arm. It's like, that's the same as punching. I'm going to practice that. Picked up some rope in the fast, and then you could just feel, because there was no inflammation in my fast, like, the body started like getting rid of the inflammation. It started to just flow for me and correct this dislocated shoulder that had always been a niggle and issues.
Problematic since.
And so that kick-started this whole new journey. And I'm the sort of person that like once I feel something, like the body responds very, very quickly. Once it like goes, oh yeah, I like that, I'm going to go hard on that. And that's what I started doing. I started doing like 7 to 8 hours on the rope
A day.
Daily. And it wasn't like, I'll stop on the weekend. It was daily. And it was an amazing accumulation of reps during this downtime. But what was fascinating in those reps, I started to realize that my breathing was bad, that my posture was off, that there were imbalances in between my left and right side, and my positioning on my feet were also not that great as well. And so the rope started communicating and guiding me towards being a more balanced person. And then I started seeing, well, if you just put more intent into this, it can be a very athletic, the greatest athletic training tool. And that's what made me dive down into WEC method way more, because I could see the way that David moved, that there was like this agileness to his persona, but also his ability as well, the way he bounced. I was like, wow, if that's a 54-year-old man doing that, that's the sort of food I want to go and eat at that table. I want to see what that is about. And then, I jumped in and did one of their courses in August. And the great
online course?
Yeah, online course. I was like awake at 1 a.m. First person to log in as well. Because I was already feeling, I was like, I'm so in. And the great Chris Chamberlain was running it, and he is the greatest mover of our generation. That fella has taken David's work and made it digestible for us to then be able to teach and get it out there a lot better. So,
and also applied it heavily to himself. Hey, he's a strong man,
strong human.
Yeah,
with amazing feats as well of skills and ability. And that online session made me just like have these epiphany and ooh-ah moments of like, oh my gosh, wow, there's so much more to unravel in this rotational movement training. And this then builds into like, okay, well, if everything's on a spiral, it doesn't just stop, it just keeps spiraling up and up and up and up. And this is something you might have experienced, like the layers, like there's just this like ongoing, and you can think about the spiraling effect. Well, if anyone at home tries it, like you spiral your hand to the furthest point that it spirals, but then what happens next is the infinitesimal part. If I spiral my elbow, now it can add more spiraling intent towards everything else. And it becomes what Dave calls infinitesimal. And this ability to just keep spiraling, or spiraling so much that you spiral over yourself. And that excites me, because my style in jiu-jitsu and in MMA is flowing and not holding tension, and being meeting your strength with strength, adapting, allowing, reading the situation as to when to strike like the cobra, like when is the right moment that they're out of balance, but I'm still in balance. And building this, you throw a punch at me, I'm not going to meet it with brunt force because I'm not a massive guy. I'm a skinny, long giraffe, lanky fella. So I want to be able to flow with it and not hold that tension. So this working on the figure eights, or the spiraling effect, really, really embodied into my persona, my being. And dude, I just continued like finding new layers, the more I focused on it, the more I did it, the more I coached it even. I started to understand deeper parts of what people's bodies were doing and what we can be doing to strip that back, to get back to what might be the innate power within our true way of moving.
So, because this is good stuff. Because I definitely hear you and have felt that experience of the layers to WEC method. Obviously, David went on his own journey. I've listened to a few of his podcasts. I've obviously met David and talked to him as well. He went on a big journey, and some of that was exploring Eastern martial arts, Tai Chi, I believe, and others. And so a lot of I guess WEC method principles have roots in martial arts, which makes sense. But maybe for people who aren't familiar with WEC method and what rotational movement training is, a lot of people have seen the rope. obviously, a lot of people have seen me do the rope.
Nice.
That was my entryway into this before I'd even heard of David Weck. It was, someone else doing the ropes. And I guess maybe we just start with, what is rotational movement training and how does it help you from a martial arts perspective or an athletic perspective? How is it different to other methods of training for athletic endeavors?
Perfect. Most people talk about bracing the core or keeping your head in neutral. So if you look at most common strength and conditioning programs for MMA athletes, they're all powerlifting based. It's all coming from that Arnold Schwarzenegger area. That's where the gyms come from as well. Like it's head in center. How do you brace that tension? And you just work up and down on your linear plane.
Bilateral movements.
Well, that's what that's what Weck method is coining the name and saying that's what that is. And so rotational movement training and Weck method has now given authority or awareness towards side bending and the ability to actually take our head over our foot, over our left and our right sides. So we're bringing more spatial awareness into our use of our spine. Now, when we can start to put a landmark of, okay, if my balance is still good when my head is over my foot, well, now I've actually expanded the perimeter of what my proximal core can do. So how am I able to use my core still in that position? And this is what we're seeing now, is that, and this is fascinating, like people will think that they're doing rotational movement training, but they're actually just twisting. They're just twisting their body. Except when we start doing Weck method and we start rotating, doing rotation RMT, we're starting to take our head, but also our shoulder will come down and back. And so you can feel this right now. If I just rotate or just twist towards either side, or if I actually practice rotating and actually put the shoulder down and back, there's so much more capacity of what you're able to find there. And now this is one of the landmarks that you'll be using in rotational movement training is, okay, do you have that side? Do you have that access to that side bend there? And okay, good. Now transition it to the other side, boom, boom. And now you've got familiarity in between your left and your right side. So what is the massive paradigm shift with RMT training is that you're building the human experience better in understanding how to deliver power between their left and their right sides. And I'm not saying head and center doesn't have a value. It does. But it's about expanding the parameter of how much degree you can go to this side. And in my training, you'll see it on the Instagram, like sometimes I really express it really, really far. That's my training room. So that when I am in the fighting, I'm able to actually tap into that and my body's familiar to it so that it's not spasming or feeling stressed when it gets taken there. It's familiar. So it's not actually like becoming an energy waster. My body is used to that, so it's normal. It's familiar.
Because it's pretty much guaranteed that you're going to get off center during a fight.
That's right.
or even during pretty much any sport or athletic endeavor, right? Like
drive your car as well.
Life doesn't really happen always in the center. Like you said, there's a role for it, there's a place for it. But it's interesting because even, let's say with boxing, for example, just a slip is basically that rotation with that side flexion, right?
Yes.
And so that is a common way to move already, but it's interesting then that the strengthen, basically what you're saying is Weck method is now applying the principles of what makes you perform in, say, fighting or throwing or running, sprinting, and actually applying that to your strength and conditioning process rather than just strength and conditioning, doing squats, deadlifts, bench, that powerlifting approach, and then performing at your sport. It's actually what strength and conditioning methods will actually support my sport the best, right?
There you go. Boom. And now your body is able to do more of the things you're meant to be doing in your sport. Now you're training the biomechanics in the SNC room and you're putting that under load. Now look, what are you chasing numbers for if you can't actually move correctly? If you can't do that with a 2 kilo, 4 kilo, 6 kilo dumbbell, like what's the point?
Yeah.
And we know this from studies that like putting a heavier ball in pitchers' hands and making them throw that heavier ball doesn't translate to more pitching speed or power. But putting a lighter ball in there and making them actually just practice the movement usually does actually increase their velocity. And so I'm fascinated about things that sort of allow us that sort of like just a bit of feedback. And that's coming back now to the rope here, because it's just enough feedback, just enough for me to start understanding, okay, when I don't jump it now, if I don't jump this rope, it just starts to naturally shift those shoulders. It brings the shoulders there naturally. The rope guides you towards these positions, WEC method, like instills. And so the rope isn't everything. The rope is like 10% of what WEC method training is, but it's a perfect guide towards enhancing or becoming familiar with what those patterns are innate in your body that are naturally there.
And this kind of relates into the spinal engine theory and that concept, which is a little bit hard to describe verbally, but essentially if you think back to our evolutionary development, then we didn't have the 4 limbs necessarily.
Correct.
If you think about a fish, for example, that's just basically side flexion. And they move around the ocean through lateral flexion of their spine.
Nice.
And then, very long story short, we come onto land. We have to now deal with gravity. We have this new plane of movement, transverse plane of movement. And we're still driving the movement from the spine, and then the limbs that we develop over millions of years kind of allow us to make that movement more efficient by interacting with the ground. And over time, we still retain that. And to move efficiently, we need this movement of the spine. We can't just keep our spine sort of locked still and expect our limbs to move efficiently around it. We still need to move our spine to walk and run well, and to perform the tasks of survival, throwing, fighting, so on. And because of our sedentary culture, which we talk about all the time on this podcast, we are disconnected from those natural patterns. And so the rope, this is what I found personally, and what I know a lot of people, pretty much anyone who practices the rope for a decent amount of time will find, is they start to really feel how the spine should be moving. The rope gives you the feedback about how well it's moving, because it won't swing well if you're not moving well, and it'll give you a smack if you mess it up, which is a great little bit of feedback.
Yes,
it doesn't hurt too much, by the way. Don't stress, but. Once you feel what that's like on the rope, then you naturally start to take that into the other aspects of, you naturally take that into your daily life. So when I'm walking, I can feel my spinal engine going because I've been training on the rope. And it's just something that I hadn't had awareness of before training with the rope, and hadn't been taught to us at all in school, in physio school, first of all, in physical education, going through primary school, high school, and not even in physio school.
Opening books.
Yeah. And so I think there's this really great overlap, which you and I have discussed before, and I talked about with David as well, is this tool as the teacher concept, where you don't necessarily need coaching. Obviously, you need a bit of a system to follow. You need to know how to start, how to progress, but just time with the tool will allow your body to self-organize to these natural patterns that it sort of has ingrained in it. Similar to if we stand on a soulmate or a beam, then it teaches our foot and hip to connect, and the feedback that they're not connected well, including with our hip and trunk and so on, the whole body basically has to learn how to align and stack well to stay on that beam or soulmate. If it doesn't, then you step off and you're like, oh, that's frustrating. I stepped off again. And then as long as you keep getting back on and you're sort of working or playing at the right level for you, then your body will organize around that task, around that constraint. Yeah. So that's one aspect of WEC method that I really love is that tool being the teacher. And something else, I guess, that was a light bulb for me was when I was at WEC Lab and we were getting deep on these coils that I'd never really done before. I'd practiced the rope, but I'd never gone into this sort of really deep coiling core training. We got on the wall, we got in with the bands, and this is something that I've then deepened further with my practice with you. And like you said, the rope is is a small percentage of it. It's a great gateway, but also once you start doing the rest of WEC method, like the coiling, then you start to get more from the rope, and I think a little bit vice versa. So it all supports each other.
Yeah.
And
you come back to the rope and you're like, oh wow, that's where it can be going.
Yeah.
Like I'm allowed to use that area.
Yeah. And from the outside, some of the movements that you like the wall coil, for example, it kind of could just look like a stretch, like, oh yeah, you're doing like a little stretch on the wall, that's cool. But the feeling of it and the intent, which is something I mentioned before, the actual intent of it just looks like you're not really moving much, but there's a lot of movement going on within the system, which is the intent. So I'm not going to try and describe it here verbally, but
you're removing the slack out of the system is what's happening with a few key areas of understanding how to position the wrist and the hip or the ankle, and the most important part is usually with the neck and how you can lengthen either side of your neck. Like if I take my head, where's the camera? Take my head over this way, well, this is lengthening and this is shortening. Well, if I shorten this side and lengthen this side, I'm now taking some slack out of that side of the system, and that allows you now to actually create more challenging exercise or more contraction and more length on the other. And that's what is still a very common mistake with people practicing WEC method, is they're not actually putting that intent into the practice, and they're making the mistake of twisting the body instead of rotating the body to the target with the intent of taking the slack out of the system. And that might be how far I pronate in or how far I externally rotate out.
Yeah, and it's something that has to be experienced, and it's also unfortunately, somewhat unfortunately, it's something that it's very hard to experience fully unless someone is there going, here, put your hand here, put your head here, because it's very hard to tap into that awareness of all of these elements of position that actually gives you that experience of taking all the slack out of the system. Because you might think you're there, and then just a few little changes in your position, you suddenly go, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be feeling. And like I've said, I feel like I kind of go a bit deeper and deeper into that feeling each time I have like a proper practice session with people looking at me and changing my position. Yeah. It's not to say that you can't get a lot of benefit just from, say, doing the rope, but I will say that there's a lot of carryover that it just adds to the bang for buck. Like I think the rope is a really high bang for buck practice, but then a few practice sessions, or the more you do the other aspects of WEC method when it comes to coiling core and experiencing it in different ways, it just creates a higher and higher bang for buck practice, I think. And something that clicked for me as well in these coils, deep in these coils, is I was kind of thinking like, well, why go this deep into the coil? And, we've talked about taking all the slack out of the system, but why, And so WEC talks about strongest and longest, right? Yes. So on one side, when you're deepest in that coil, that is the strongest position from which you could resist the most amount of force, right? Yep. And then the other side is sort of in its longest position, which they both go hand in hand because of the way the fascial lines are set up.
Yes.
And so when one side is longest, it actually allows you to get the other side into strongest. And probably, and vice versa, I imagine.
Yeah. The more you punch down that, the more this is
More
going to create, this is easy now.
Yeah.
This is longer.
Yeah. So
there's a perfect duality in that. And this is what's amazing about this sort of training, is that it balances the system. The body will, I've trained around scoliosis for so many years, and now I am more balanced than ever without pain, from becoming so aware of what this side is doing, shortening and lengthening. Okay, well, can I translate that directly over to my other side? And the dominant side can now teach the non-dominant how to move better in the space you control. And the epiphany moment for me was when I realized that my non-dominant side actually had to teach my dominant side how to play the non-dominant role. My left hand had to teach my right hand how to play the submissive, the non-leader. Because the leader was teaching the non-dominant how to be a leader.
But not the other way around.
Not the other way
your,
around.
Your dominant had to be the follower.
Correct. And that was the massive ooh-ah moment where another layer, where everything just started to ease off, and okay, I've got to actually not take the tension when it's here. It's the tension in this side that allows this non-dominant to find that. And yeah.
So what? Yeah, it's an interesting one, hey, because there's, I guess the dominant narrative at the moment is don't worry about structural balance, and a lot of this is focused on pain and symptoms, and it's posture doesn't really matter, asymmetries don't really matter for pain and injury, and I think pain and injury is one of those things that is so multifactorial that if you just try and study one contributing factor like posture or structural balance or whatever, then it's going to be hard to pinpoint, there's definitely a causal link there. But if you just sort of focus on performance, it does make sense that you should, obviously you're going to have dominant and non-dominant sides, most people, vast majority of people. But if you can do one thing really well on one side and very poorly on the other side, there's probably an opportunity there. And how much that relates to pain and injury, I'm not sure, but how much it relates to performing well and feeling good in your body, I think from my experience, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it does
low-hanging fruit.
It's low-hanging fruit
because now you've got something that you can translate in your own human experience, your own spatial awareness of how you actually might be able to enhance that dominant side, and just by bringing a little bit of time or feedback into that other, can I throw with my left hand? What is it doing? And now you're creating a massive amount of neural pathways into understanding what that side isn't doing and what it could be doing. And now that will help strengthen that other side. So I've been on a journey to try and figure out how to stop throwing with my left hand like a sissy.
Like a left-handed.
Right? Yeah, left-handed wussy.
Yeah.
Right? And it's far out. It's been amazingly fun and challenging. And the more that I've actually focused on letting go of the tension on my left side and actually focusing on what my right arm's doing in the load up, it's given me now a parameter of okay, well, this makes this become freer, and it just does it naturally. And it's really back down to coiling core again. Yeah. Because as I pronate this hand, I'm now loading at the target I want to throw, boom, boom, and it's taking the slack out of the system, so you're not making these minor mistakes of where my elbow or my wrist or my hand is going.
Why do that?
Why have I done that? Because as a martial artist, I do want to have more access to not only tissue, but tools in my arsenal so that I can rely upon if I need to have them ready. So
if you dislocate your right shoulder and you need to
do
more with your left.
Perfect. So I just took it on the and this is probably what the rope didn't find me, I found the rope, because I was looking for tools that could enhance that, could bring me better connections throughout my whole body to make me move better as a human, move better in my sport. And as soon as I rolled the rope and then put it down, it was an immediate feedback loop, as you were saying, on like what my spine can now do as I'm walking. And then that translated into my running. Oh my gosh, it's in my throwing now as well. Every simple, natural human skill has some aspect in what this rope can teach them, teach you to become better at.
Yeah, when I started doing a bit of one-handed rope, and I figured out like a pretty neat little pattern with my right hand. I was like, oh yeah, that feels good. Again, hard to describe verbally, but sort of spinning around my body, and then my hand would come above my body, and then it'd end up in like a bit of a throwing action. I was like, well, that feels good. It's like it's like this, a sort of a throwing flow, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah.
With a rope. I'm not actually throwing the rope, but because of the way the rope swings, you can take advantage of that momentum. And then went to my left side and just smacking myself completely, just what is going on. And I went through that process of what is my right hand doing? Because it kind of just came naturally. And I was like, I'll move my body like this, I'll move my feet like this, and the rope will go around me, and I end up with this flow. And then doing it with my left hand is like, oh, it doesn't come naturally. So then you really have to analyze, what am I doing with my right hand? And when I'm using my right hand, my feet go like this. When I'm using my left hand, my feet kind of have to mirror that.
Yes.
And then
my T-spine will open up when the rope comes behind me. So now it's giving me more access to the tissue to open up that shoulder girdle and translate the power through the thing.
Everything kind of has to move in mirror image, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that people really don't do. They tend to just go down the path of least resistance, which is dominant side. And so that's fine. Like you can perform with dominant side, and that makes sense. You're not going to go and purposely fight with your right hand behind your back or something, but or you're a javelin thrower and you're like, I just want to throw with my non-dominant. It's like, yes, perform with your right, but in terms of movement variability and I guess balance between the two sides, which really comes back to movement variability, then it makes sense to practice a bit with your left or your non-dominant rather. And so I did figure it out with my left, and now it feels pretty much just as smooth as my right, and I can swap between them. And I did notice that I can throw way better with my left hand now. I'm still a bit of a sissy, it feels, it's not quite the same, but definitely it just feels more coordinated, simply because I could get reps. I think that's the other thing about the rope is like you can get reps of a throwing action without actually having to throw a ball and put heaps of load through it and go and collect the ball and so on. You can just sort of stand there and move the rope around, and you get the feedback by getting a little whack with the rope here and there. But it's just a lot of reps, and it becomes very engaging. Like if I just stood there and moved my spine,
shoulder down,
did that. One, I wouldn't be as sure about how I'm performing, but two, it's not very engaging. I'm not going to be called to stand there and do that for 20, 30 minutes at a time like I am with the rope.
Yeah.
So it taps into, again, this play, the body has an innate desire to play, and sometimes you need a tool to play. It's similar to a hacky sack. Like I'm not just going to stand there and swing my legs around at the park, but if I've got a ball to juggle, I will be swinging my legs for hours and I'll be happy. Perfect. So, I think that aspect of it really can't be
overlooked. And so what I'm noticing as well is like there's an expansion of the human mind as well in these like moments. Because as the left and the right side of the brain start to communicate, there's this like new neurons, and we should be doing studies on this, but they have done studies on juggling, how it does bring the left and right sides of the brain just start to like create more neurons and expanding. Well, to me, that means expanding the brain's ability and removing Alzheimer's, I'm sure, and has benefits towards Parkinson's, all of these common diseases. Autism as well would become like bit like easier because now you're crossing the center line with a perfect duality. And now when we bring a tool in that guides you towards a harmonious balance or a harmonious wave, now we're starting to talk about something that is innate in us. And this comes back to the spinal engine, but the beautiful thing of our RMT training with the rope is that you'll understand your right side and your left side. And if you are very more heavy dominant on that left side, you'll be able to even it out. And as you're doing that, you're starting to draw this figure 8 with the rope. And what you'll notice is if you're too high or too much energy on the up, the down is not as smooth. And now this will start to communicate to you the harmonious wave, the perfect pitch of balance of the up and the down working together. Now what's fascinating, tying this back into the spinal engine, is that the first movement wouldn't have been straight up and down. It would have been this oscillation between left and right. And as we start to realize that, that's sort of a vibration or an expansion of like boom, 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 boom. And we are all these little frequencies, and the way we verbalize and communicate, it's a frequency again. And the rope is a tool that brings awareness into this frequency of what we as a humans are growing from, which is our spine. We are growing from our spine, expanding our human out from our spine. And when we are able to bring a tool that brings duality into the up and the down, the extension and the compression, the up and the down of the figure 8, you're now able to enhance your human experience because you are aware of both up and down or left and right. And you can, if you want to be more right dominant, great. You can take it that way. If you want to balance out the system and spend more time on your left so that you no longer great, you can. So however you pick up and show up with the rope each session, it will meet you there. It will allow you the training, the moment to be guided towards what you need. So everyone pick up a rope and just don't jump it and just start moving it, and it will start to show up for you if you're able to spend time with it, what you're already doing. And then if you can just think, okay, Ben Patrick did this really, really good. Everyone's walking forwards, why don't I just walk backwards? And now I'll get bang for buck. And so if you can use that same reverse psychology or flip the script, okay, I'm doing this naturally. What if I stop the rope and then try, oh my gosh, it can go the other way. And then now you're bringing this expansion into your life, and an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon. And if you can keep expanding and keep having tools like the soulmate, like the Bosu ball, like the rope, that keep you on your toes and sort of just like keep bringing more new levels into your practice, it's going to be very, very hard for you to slow down. Your mind's going to be, I can jump back on that and keep going. And that's what I needed as a martial artist. Tools that allowed me to start actually having fun that didn't make me need to be in a gym.
Yeah.
So COVID had happened. I'm in a park now. It's like, all right, what can I do now to actually keep this momentum going? And skilled training is one of the lowest hanging fruits, I believe, because the left and right sides of the brain will just start to bring that nice connection together, and that then trickles into how you love your partner as well, or how you can have these communications and conversations, or how you can, as a coach, how you can show up and teach something new other than just doing 10 sets of 10 reps of 3 sets. You've now got something in your tool belt that you can actually show. And that's why I love like working with coaches as well, is because it actually keeps me on my toes, but I am able to show them and accelerate their journey to a point of what I wish I had like way earlier on. But then I'm also working on things in the background that I've never released on Instagram.
Yeah.
I've got a notebook that like not many people see. And what's cool is with the rope, it is literally a bit of a, you can only learn as much as like you sort of know or have experienced with it. So when you pick it up first, it's like unfamiliar. So you've got to become familiar with it. And then as a coach with the rope, you'll be able to always show someone else something new if you keep exploring it yourself. The reps do not lie. And we can see this in a ton of people's practices, is that they're on the Instagram trying to show that like the rope's the best. And it is the best thing. But are you allowing the rope to sort of guide you towards it, or are you forcing it? What's fascinating is you cannot push a rope. You have to flow it. You have to flow with it. Perfect analogy is because the lesson is in the rope. Yes, there is 4 simple patterns, but in those patterns will be infinite, because we're working on the figure 8 path here, there are infinite possibilities and infinite lessons towards your own being and your own human. As you, as a coach, will get to actually a level, and then you'll see another coach and they'll have their own level. And if you've got that learning mindset, which the rope sort of teaches, you'll be able to absorb that, put that into your practice immediately. But if you're unfamiliar with the rope, it will be, oh my gosh, like, what are these? So get out there, learn the 4 patterns, jump on my YouTube and start learning the 4 patterns, because from there, then you can start to add martial intent to it, on how to punch, how to throw, your ability to locomote, running, structurally balancing yourself for better soulmate training, throwing patterns, tennis serves, tennis top spins, backhands, ping pong, and even basketball is in there as well. There's just a plethora of ways, if you as a coach learn the 4 patterns, how you can actually take the rope and put your own intent behind it and start matching it so that it, I've even seen a fella teaching it for fishing casting.
True.
Because
Makes sense.
You can position the rope in a certain way that it starts doing that. Or 10-pin bowling.
Yeah.
It keeps going on.
And the cool thing about the rope and the soulmate and the hacky, probably
Tools.
there's the tool aspect, but the other thing is they're so simple.
Yes.
The tools themselves are so simple. It's not some complex machine. They're relatively cheap, easy to store, easy to port around.
Yeah, carry around.
But also they look, when someone performs it, it looks a lot easier than it is. So that's one thing that I find, especially practitioners and coaches really like, is seeing you do something and then go, oh yeah, I can see what you're doing there. Like say a dragon roll, or even just a figure 8. But
nice.
You see that, or like standing on one leg on a soulmate. It's like, yep, easy peasy. Jump up. Oh, that's hard. Whoa, what's going on here? It's like this domed surface is now throwing me off. Or wait, what were you just doing again? You rotate here. It's like you can make it look very easy because it is simple enough at its core. But like you said, the reps. I can't remember if you said the reps don't lie, basically.
Yeah, the reps don't lie.
Yeah,
that it like shows up. Like in the reps is where those experiences show up.
Yeah, and you literally only get it from doing the reps, and by doing the reps, you get the experience of why it's powerful, why it's helpful for your body. You don't necessarily. A lot of people would look at someone standing on a soulmate or swinging a rope and be like, so what? Like it's not helping me squat.
Yeah.
It's not helping my squat PB, or whatever. But yeah, so what? It's like a bit gimmicky. But then with the practice, the consistency, and the deepening of the practice, you really start to experience it and feel it. And so, I mean, that's probably a good place to wrap it up. We're coming up on time now anyway.
Perfect.
And like you said, it really can be as simple as just grabbing a rope. People can grab them from you, I believe.
Yeah.
And
Wild Potential.
Wildpotential.com.au.
But
We'll link it in the show notes and YouTube channel.
Ben 8 Watson, because we're on the figure 8 path. Most powerful thing would be is if you just simply want to try this at home, just take your hand into supination, holding a plate, and then flipping it over. And then if you can actually take it across either side of your body, you'll start to draw the figure 8 there, just real simple. Supinate to pronate, supinate to pronate.
Holding a bowl?
Yeah, because that's supination. Oh no, don't hold a bowl. Just pretend you're holding a bowl, because people don't actually like to get the palm completely up.
Yeah.
And you pronate over.
Flip the bowl over.
Yeah, bring it back. And then you'll find, and that's the natural position the shoulder likes to move. And then if you can put a skipping rope, a piece of rope, even a towel in your hand, a dog lead. So many people would message me, I'm using a dog lead.
I've used that before as well.
Yeah, nice, you're walking the dog. And what you'll notice is when you don't jump it, just don't jump the rope or the dog lead. And it will just start to draw these figure 8 patterns out in front of you. And now you've started the journey. So I look forward to seeing everyone start that and become a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really having its day now. I feel like I see a new person, like a new influencer doing rope flow every day, basically. It's really cool. And
it's going to be undeniable.
I highly, highly recommend, starting small, but also like with the YouTube videos and just something that's accessible to you. But as practitioners and coaches, having done 2 WEC method certs, I'm already kind of keen for the 3rd.
Yes.
But yeah, it's one of those practices, again, that from the outside, you may not really intuitively understand it. Hopefully this conversation has helped sort of open up, get some connections firing and some understanding, but it is one of those things that really has to be experienced. And from my experience, I would just highly, highly recommend delving in and taking that step. Obviously, you run certifications in Australia.
Yep.
So far in sort of Southeast Queensland, plans for other locations as well?
Maybe Perth, but we'll look at Sydney next year.
Actually, by the time this goes out, it will be 2025. So look at Sydney this year.
But we'll also be up in Brisbane soon to do some workshops as well.
Sweet.
So
it'll all be happening. Check out Wild Potential, basically.
Yeah, and Ben 8 Watson across all platforms, Instagram and YouTube. But I'm very looking forward to, as being a master coach of WEC Method here, and it impacting my life only for the better and absolutely changing my athletic potential. I have nothing but passion towards the teachings of Dave and Chris, and actually sharing that passion that when I went to go and meet them, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm already doing this. And then they put it into my hand and I felt the intent myself. And I thought, oh my God, I've been wasting 2 years of my life. I should have been here already.
Yeah.
And so
That's kind of how I'm feeling now.
Yeah.
After years of rope flow, and then like, oh, I've been missing this.
Could be doing this better.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate, but excited to sort of bring this down here to Australia and passionately. So reach out with any questions. I've got heaps of videos that I can send over, and looking forward to helping everyone on this journey and not making the same mistakes I did.
Well, you're doing an awesome job so far, bro, and looking forward to being part of it.
Thank you.
And we'll wrap up there. Perfect out. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
And catch you next week.
Thanks for joining us on the Restore to Explore podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, the best way you can support us is by leaving a review and subscribing wherever you are catching this episode. If you want more free TFC training and education, are after some of our training tools, some natural footwear discounts, or want more specialized guidance from a trusted TFC health professional, then thefootcollective.com is the place to go. You'll find all of the helpful links in the show notes.